Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nathan, and on today's video I'll be predicting the 2022 MLB season. Watch until the end to find out. Hit that subscribe button if you're new, and let's get this video started. The Toronto Blue Jays, 98-64. The Toronto Blue Jays finished 4th in a tough AL East a year ago. They barely missed the playoffs last season, and they were one game behind for a wild card spot. In the 2021 season, they had a record of 91 wins and 71 losses. The Blue Jays will continue to get better both through external additions and internal progression. This season, they will be playing at the same home park all year. Toronto has one of the most scariest lineups in the league this season after losing Marcus Semien and Robbie Ray in free agency. They also have a great pitching staff that could be one of the best in the American League. I absolutely think that the Toronto Blue Jays are the team to beat in the American League. The Tampa Bay Rays, 93-69. The Tampa Bay Rays have made the playoffs for 3 straight seasons in a row, and that's the first time that's ever happened in franchise history. They have won 2 straight American League East titles and are coming off their best season in franchise history last year where they won 100 games. In the playoffs, they made it to the AL Division Series against the Boston Red Sox, and unfortunately they lost that series in 4 games. Even though they were the best team in the American League last season, unfortunately it was a disappointing season at the same time. Tampa Bay is an interesting team that baffles us each season, and every time we think that they're going to fall off, but somehow they keep coming back stronger and stronger each year. I still believe that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to have another strong season this year, and they should be in contention for a division title. The New York Yankees, 90-72. The New York Yankees had a good season last year, but they weren't as good as they should have been in 2021. They were contenders last season for a World Series title, but unfortunately they didn't even get close. The Yankees did make the playoffs last season, and in the playoffs they were eliminated right away in the AL wildcard game against the Boston Red Sox. New York has been both contenders and disappointments in recent years, and their last World Series appearance came in 2009. They have currently made the playoffs for 5 seasons in a row. The Yankees did get better defensively this offseason. I suspect that the New York Yankees won't overtake their division rivals for an AL East title, but they will be in contention for a wildcard spot. The Boston Red Sox, 88-74. The Boston Red Sox were a surprise team last season, winning 92 games and securing a playoff berth, after missing the playoffs for 2 straight seasons in a row. In the playoffs, they made it to the ALCS against the Houston Astros, and unfortunately they lost that series in 6 games. Maintaining that momentum in what remains the evolving stages of a rebuild won't be easy for them. For one, Boston won't be sneaking up on anyone again this season. In the offseason, they saved their splashiest move by signing Trevor Story to a 6-year deal. I suspect that the Boston Red Sox will have a good season and will be in contention for a wildcard spot this year. The Baltimore Orioles, 60-102. The Baltimore Orioles had another horrible season last year by winning 52 games and losing 110 games. They haven't had a winning record since 2016. Their last playoff appearance came in 2016. Baltimore lost 19 games in a row last season, and that's the second longest streak in club history. It was the longest losing streak in the majors last season, and the longest since the Royals also dropped 19 straight in 2005. This season, the Baltimore Orioles will be entering their 4th year of their rebuild and will be the worst team in the American League. So that's my AL East standing predictions for the 2022 season. The Chicago White Sox, 96-66. The Chicago White Sox had a wonderful season last year, and they won over 90 games for the first time since the 2006 season. The White Sox had their first ever back-to-back playoff appearances in franchise history. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the AL Division Series against the Houston Astros, and unfortunately they lost that series in 4 games. In the 2 straight playoff appearances for the White Sox, they have had 2 consecutive first-round exits. In the offseason, Chicago added Joe Kelly and Kendall Graveman to the back end of this bullpen is huge. I believe Chicago has the best roster in this division. I expect the Chicago White Sox to repeat as division champions this season. The Detroit Tigers, 81-81. The Detroit Tigers had their best season since the 2016 campaign. Last year they won 77 games, lost 85 games, and missed the playoffs for a 7th consecutive season in a row. Their last winning record was in 2016, and their last playoff appearance was in 2014. The Tigers' rebuild at some time seemed like it may never end, but finally appeared to have turned a corner in the 2021 season. The Tigers started with a record of 8 wins and 19 losses in April. Then they went to 69 wins and 66 losses the rest of the way. Detroit has had a nice offseason so far by adding impact back like Javier Baez and so many more to pay with great young talent. While I don't think the Tigers are going to challenge Chicago for the division, but I do see them heading in the right direction this season. The Minnesota Twins, 80-82. The Minnesota Twins had a nightmare of a season last year after ruling the AL Central for 2 years in a row. Minnesota had a record of 73 wins and 89 losses last season. The Twins have had a good offseason this year, and they made one of the most shocking signings so far, getting Carlos Correa on a 3-year deal. One thing that could be a problem for the Twins is their pitching depth, and that could decide whether they are a wildcard contender this season. I suspect that the Minnesota Twins will be a really competitive team this season, and they should be around the 500 mark for the year, and maybe if everything goes right, they could make a wildcard spot. The Cleveland Guardians, 77-85. In case you forget, the Cleveland Indians are no more. In July, it was announced that their name will be the Cleveland Guardians after being called the Indians since 1915. Last season, the Cleveland Indians didn't have a good season with a record of 80 wins and 82 losses. Since 2016, Cleveland has made the playoffs 4 times, going to the World Series once in 2016. Cleveland's offense will struggle to score runs all season, and especially in a division that has pretty good pitching. I suspect that the Cleveland Guardians will have their second straight season under 500 and will miss the playoffs again this year. The Kansas City Royals, 73-89. The Kansas City Royals had their best season in wins since the 2017 campaign. Their record last season was 74 wins and 88 losses. Kansas City hasn't made the playoffs since they won the 2015 World Series. They have made a lot of moves in the offseason to try and improve the pitching staff, including Zach Greinke and Brad Peacock. I believe that the Kansas City Royals will be a more improved team this season and will be the best team to finish in last place in a division. Maybe if everything goes right, they could possibly stay in wildcard contention until the end of the season. So that's my AL Central standing predictions for the 2022 season. The Houston Astros, 91-71. The Houston Astros had a good season last year by making the World Series. In the World Series, they played against the Atlanta Braves, and unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 6 games. Houston has won the AL West 4 times in the last 5 seasons and have made the playoffs all 5 times. In the offseason, the Astros lost Carlos Correa in free agency, and that leaves them with a gaping hole at shortstop it is mandatory to fill. But the return of Justin Verlander on top of the rotation gives Houston one of the AL's deepest pitching staffs. This season, I suspect that the Houston Astros will have a good season again and will be a contender for AL West Division title this year. The Seattle Mariners, 89-73. The Seattle Mariners in the 2021 season won 90 games for the first time since the 2003 season. They were so close to ending the longest current playoff drought in professional sports, and their last playoff appearance came in the 2001 season when they won 116 games. After the rebuild started 3 years ago, I would officially say that the rebuild process is over now. Seattle improved mildly this offseason, adding Robbie Wright, Adam Frazier, Jesse Winker, and Egidio Suarez on top of an elite group of young talent. I absolutely think that the Seattle Mariners will be an even better team this season, and they should challenge the Houston Astros for the AL West Division title. The Seattle Mariners have arrived, and the 2022 season will be their true coming out party when they clinch a playoff spot. The Los Angeles Angels, 83-79. The Los Angeles Angels had another disappointing season last year by not finishing with a winning record for a 6th consecutive season in a row. Los Angeles hasn't made the playoffs since the 2014 season. The Angels have added a lot of pitching help in the offseason so far, but their weakness over the past seasons has been their pitching staff. So if the Angels want to contend this season for a possible wildcard spot, it will come down to their pitching staff this year. I suspect that the Los Angeles Angels should be slightly improved from the 2021 season, but their rotation doesn't look that great this year. The Texas Rangers, 75-87. The Texas Rangers had a horrible season last year by losing 102 games for the first time since the 1973 campaign. They have currently missed the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons in a row, and their last winning season was in 2016. In the week before December 1st lockout, the Rangers invested $561 million in free agents, a record for any team in a single offseason. In the offseason, they got dramatically better in certain areas. They signed Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, John Gray, and got Mitch Garver in a trade with the Minnesota Twins. They are all big-time impact additions to a team that lost over 100 games in 2021. I believe that the Texas Rangers will improve this season, but they are still far away from contention and will miss the playoffs for a 6th straight season in a row. The Oakland Athletics, 70-92. The Oakland Athletics had a disappointing season last year by missing the playoffs for the first time since the 2017 season. Oakland has had 4 straight winning seasons in a row currently, and that should end this year. The 2022 season will signal another restart of a rebuild for the Oakland Athletics. Oakland in the offseason traded away all-stars Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, and Chris Bassett, and much of the bullpen has departed. I truly feel so bad for the Oakland A's fans that have to go through this like every 5 years. In the 2022 season, I have the Oakland Athletics finishing in last place in the AL West division and will be the second worst team in the American League. So that's my AL West standing predictions for the 2022 season. The Atlanta Braves, 93-69. The Atlanta Braves had a fabulous season last year by winning their first World Series title since 1995. In the Braves franchise history, they have won 4 World Series titles since they were established in 1876. In the offseason, Atlanta Braves lost franchise legend Freddie Freeman, but this roster could be better without him. They required Matt Olson to replace Freeman in the offseason. They also improved their bullpen by signing Colin McHugh, Kenley Jansen, and Kirby Yates. Atlanta is looking to repeat as World Series champions, and they have a reloaded roster this year that looks quite nicely. I absolutely think that the Atlanta Braves will repeat as NL East Division champions for a 5th time in a row and could win another World Series title this year. The New York Mets, 90-72. The New York Mets had a disappointing season last year by not making the playoffs and also by not having a winning record. They haven't made the playoffs since they went to the World Series in 2015, and they haven't had a winning record since the 2019 campaign. In the offseason, they added Matt Scherzer and Chris Bassett to the starting rotation and added so many more offensive bats to help improve an offense that ranked 27th in runs scored last year. They are built to win now, and they do have an older roster, but they hope to follow the San Francisco Giants' 2021 example and gain the most out of their talented veterans by having enough depth to spread around the workload. I suspect that they will have a bounce-back season and will make a playoff spot this year. If they don't make a playoff spot, it will be a massive letdown. The Philadelphia Phillies, 87-75. The Philadelphia Phillies had an okay season last year, but on the bright side, they did have a winning record. Even with the National League MVP Bryce Harper and a top 5 payroll, the Phillies couldn't stop their postseason drought from reaching a decade in 2021. They haven't made the playoffs since the 2011 season. The Phillies made a couple of really nice moves in the offseason, signing 2 big bats, and that will make this offense even better this season. Their bullpen remains a weak spot this season after having the 25th ranked bullpen last year, and the back end of their rotation has some question marks. I suspect that the Philadelphia Phillies offense will carry them this season and will give them a fighting chance for a wildcard spot this year. The Miami Marlins, 76-86. The Miami Marlins had a bad season last year with a 67-win campaign. They have made the playoffs 3 times in their franchise history, and most recently in 2020. Besides Derek Jeter stepping down as the team's CEO and selling his stake in the franchise, Miami actually had a pretty good offseason, filling in some big holes despite that drama. Their farm system remains one of the best, and the solid starting rotation should only get better as the arms continue to develop and mature. I'm certain the Miami Marlins will have a lot better season this year and are on the right direction. The Washington Nationals, 71-91. The Washington Nationals had a brutal season last year with a record of 65 wins and 97 losses after winning the World Series just a couple of years ago. They traded all of their premium pieces last season, named Matt Scherzer and Trey Turner, as well as 6 other veterans. In the offseason, they signed Nelson Cruz, but besides that, they haven't done much to get better in this offseason. Their rotation isn't great, and their bullpen is a disaster. The Washington Nationals could be better than last season, but don't expect a playoff berth this year. So that's my NL East standing predictions for the 2022 season. The Milwaukee Brewers, 91-71. The Milwaukee Brewers had a tremendous season last year by winning their division and making a playoff spot for the 4th time in a row, and that's a franchise record. In the playoffs, they played against the Atlanta Braves in the NL Division Series, and unfortunately they lost that series in 4 games. Milwaukee had the second best starting rotation in the league last season. They have made some nice moves this offseason. Milwaukee has a great lineup and they have a great rotation, but one of their strengths will be their bullpen. I suspect that the Milwaukee Brewers will win their division again this season and could have a deep playoff run this year. The St. Louis Cardinals, 88-74. The St. Louis Cardinals had another great season last year by making the playoffs for a 3rd consecutive season in a row. In the playoffs, they made it to the NL wildcard game against the Dodgers, and unfortunately they lost that game. In the offseason, the Cardinals signed Steven Matz, and they were surprisingly pretty quiet. St. Louis is going to be a competitive team this year, but will that be enough for a playoff spot? I suspect that the St. Louis Cardinals are going to be a wildcard contender this season, and that will depend on how healthy their rotation stays this year. The Chicago Cubs, 78-84. The Chicago Cubs had a bad season last year by having their first losing season since 2014. They traded away all their star players at the trade deadline last season. This will be a rebuilding year, although the Cubs did sign 2 bigger names in the free agent market in this offseason. Still, they will be focusing more on waiting for prospects to arrive and form the core of the next contending Cubs team. By all means, I think that the Chicago Cubs won't make a playoff spot this year, and this will be the beginning of a rebuild in Chicago. The Cincinnati Reds, 69-93. The Cincinnati Reds have had back-to-back winning seasons in a row, but they didn't make the playoffs last year. Their offense will be their strength this season, but everything else, especially pitching, will be their weakness this year. They traded away most of their good players in the offseason, with anything promising that the Cincinnati Reds built last season looks to be gone now. I expect that the Cincinnati Reds will not progress this season and will start a new rebuild this year. The Pittsburgh Pirates, 58-104. The Pittsburgh Pirates had a horrible season last year by losing 101 games and missing the playoffs for a 6th consecutive year in a row. Their last winning season came in the 2018 campaign. Pittsburgh is heading into their 2nd year of a major rebuild this season. One good thing is that they have restocked their organization with young talent, and many rank their farm system among the best in the game. By all means, I think that the Pittsburgh Pirates will be the worst team in MLB this season. So that's my NL Central standings predictions for the 2022 season. The Los Angeles Dodgers, 162. The Los Angeles Dodgers had another fantastic season last year by winning 106 games for the 2nd time in the last 3 seasons. In the playoffs, they played against the Atlanta Braves in the NLCS, and unfortunately they lost that series in 6 games. It was a really disappointing finish for them after winning 106 games and not making it to the World Series. The Dodgers have currently made the playoffs 9 times in a row, and that's the most in franchise history. In the offseason, they signed Freddie Freeman to an already fantastic lineup. They also re-signed Clayton Kershaw and Chris Taylor in the offseason, and that was huge. I absolutely think that the Los Angeles Dodgers are the best team in the league and are the team to beat in the National League. The San Diego Padres, 91-71. The San Diego Padres had a disappointing season last year by missing the playoffs and having a losing record. They finished the season with 79 wins and 83 losses. In the offseason, they made some nice acquisitions and they weren't as flashy as last offseason. Their starting rotation at the end is a little bit questionable, and their bullpen depth isn't that great. They did lose Fernando Tatis Jr. to a fractured wrist, and he could be out for 3 months. So I suspect the San Diego Padres will have a good season this year, and when Fernando Tatis Jr. comes back and stays healthy, I see them making a playoff spot this year. The San Francisco Giants, 89-73. The San Francisco Giants had their best season in franchise history last year by winning 107 games. They also won the NL West for the first time since the 2012 season. In the playoffs, they made it to the NL Division Series against the Dodgers, and unfortunately they lost that series in 5 games. San Francisco was pretty quiet this offseason until they signed Carlos Rendon, Matthew Boyd, and Jock Peterson, and those signings are great. Their bullpen and starting rotation are both their strength this year. By all means, I think that the San Francisco Giants will have a good season this year and will be a wildcard team this year. The Colorado Rockies, 72-90. The Rockies had a lot better season last year than they should have had. They haven't made a playoff appearance since the 2018 season. Their last season with a winning record was also 2018. In the offseason, the Rockies signed Chris Bryant to a 7-year deal worth $182 million. Their offense will be their strength, and their rotation and bullpen will be their weakness this year. I suspect the Rockies are still going to be in rebuilding mode this season, but they won't finish this season in last place. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 66-96. The Arizona Diamondbacks had their second worst season in franchise history last year, winning 52 games. They have currently missed the playoffs for 4 consecutive seasons in a row, and their last season with a winning record was in 2019. Arizona's rotation and bullpen actually doesn't look that bad on paper. The Diamondbacks spent most of the offseason reinforcing the bullpen. They are in a loaded NL West division, and it would be difficult for them to compete for a division crown this year. By all means, I think that the Arizona Diamondbacks will finish the new season in last place, but they won't be as bad as they were last season. So that's my NL West standing predictions for the 2022 season. Who do you guys think will be the best team in the 2022 MLB season? Join me in the comment section down below and tell me what you guys think. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that notification bell to be notified of all new videos in the future. Make sure you share this video with friends and family, and please get this video out there. My name is Nathan, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to just keep loving sports, and I'll see you next time.